Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Proclamation News and Gavin's back. Flux with a flow and flux with the show. It is the prodigious, the prominent Professor Johnson. Thank you all for coming through, supporting the show. Please subscribe, share. You can always leave us a little comment in the message in the chat comments, and I'll get back to you. Thank you for coming through, being both preserved and observed. You're part of the aristocracy social elite. Listening takes a lot of concentration span. Takes a lot of concentration. People like to listen while they're working. People like to listen while they're driving. Appreciate all the support we can get for the show. We do this methodically every single day of the week. People just come in, see what's going on, and they come out of the show. But you can always engage, come with some constructive criticism with the show, what you'd like to hear more of, what you'd like to engage with as well. What would you like to have a conversation about? Is there anything in your society that you'd like to make change? It's important to let your voice get heard, see what adaptations we can make for the future, for the better of our grandchildren, yourself, mum and dad. That's our future. Shape up our future. Absolutely. We've got local elections coming up in May. I think it might be May the 5th. You have to double check online. Got the postal votes come through. It's either May the 5th or May the 8th springs to mind. Well, I've registered to vote. I do all the time. I've got a bit of a chest infection at the moment, so you have to bear with me, ladies and gents. Um, Things that you might want to make change. Children's schooling, maybe some transport. They've changed the transport now with bus people, disability bus passes of the elderly. I think they used to do a cut off thing for the people getting the bus at 9 o'clock. I think you can get a bus before 9 o'clock with your bus pass now, getting into town or going to do a voluntary role. So there you go. Anyway, a lot of these voluntary roles, um, they pay you travel expenses if you do drive also. So bear that in mind, ladies and gents. If you do want to volunteer, get yourself into some source of work, get yourself out there, but keep yourself busy. It's proclamation news and Gavin's. What would you like to shape up for the future? Maybe where you live in, the society you live in is you got a lot of fly tippers, people not looking after their property, like council areas, people throwing out their tip at the front of their garden. Built up residential area, flats maybe, people putting out um, their beds, their sofas, wash machines, cookers, just leave them in the front of the garden, makes it look a mess. You can speak to a local MP and try and make some change, put notices for the door to make people notice that they're leaving their place in a bit of a sorry state of affairs. I'm looking at trying to always make reports. If I see any fly tipping outside shopping precincts, I report it. If I see any broken bollards, broken manholes, lampposts that don't work, even to potholes in the road that damage a vehicle, or potholes in the footpath where people can trip, slip, or fall. If there's if there's a blame, there's a claim. So I always make report to the council. It's important the council do make repairs because if there's an accident that does happen, you put a claim in. It would be my fault in my area that I didn't put down a protocol to make actions for the future. So it's important to engage with me so I can engage with what you need within your constituency. Anyway, proclamation news and governments. I'm the prodigious prominent Professor Johnson, so more than welcome to tell me your problem within your area. Maybe not enough homeless shelters in your area, maybe not enough support, trying to get you on universal credit. If you need ideas or where to go, please leave me a message. Struggling financially, where to go for help and support. Again, feel free to leave me a comment and I will get back to you in the comments. Anyway, looking at the car incidents throughout the UK, I want you to think safety, think first. This is not just for you; it's for everyone. Some people might go to the park. We know the basics. Shouldn't drink drive. Shouldn't drive on sleep deprivation. Shouldn't drive under the influence of alcohol and narcotics. It's youth today. Sometimes maybe yourself, you can have a couple of drinks with your friends, feel like you're safe to drive home. If you get pulled, you're going to get points in license, possibly get banned. Check your engine or water coolant tank, your PSI limits on the side of your tyre treads. Make sure your tyres are not bowled. Make sure you've got plenty sufficient air pressure in your tyres and plenty of fuel on board. Allowing for car incidents, road closures, weather as well, allowing for weather. It can take longer on your journey. If it's been snowing, it's going to be a big tailback of cars. Think safety, think first. Make sure you and passengers have seatbelts on and babies have seatbelts adjacent to the car seat and adapters. Check for further police actions, road safety signs. Check for road workers. Drive vigilantly around roadworks just in case a road worker is living behind the fence onto the road. Drive vigilantly, slow down. Check your centre mirror and wing mirror before turning, acting as a safe, sufficient directional of choice. Think safety, think first. It's important to get the message across, not just for you, for the youth of today as well. I'm trying to influence the whole of the populace. Thank you ever so much for listening, tuning in. Proclamation News Gavin's. Shaken, not stirred. Carlston's inside the southeast of England. A137 around the Colchester area. Congestion on A137 Cox Hill northbound from B1325 Long Road, Bromley Corner to B135 Station Road at 20 to 7 a.m. this morning. Near Ipswich, queuing traffic on the A12 in the construction area. For 4 miles in A12 northbound between Junction 31, East Burgoll and Junction 32, Cable St Mary, congestion to Junction 30, Stratford St Mary in the construction area, down to one lane towards Ipswich for emergency repairs. Travel time is 25 minutes, 5:58 a.m. You can find Proclamation News and Gavin's on Spotify, Anchor, Podcast, Google Cast, Castbox, YouTube. You name it, we claim it. Come and listen to our show on daily. In Braintree, A120 traffic on a congestion A120 westbound at B1018 Galleys Corner. Travel time is 10 minutes. Usual queues approaching the roundabout 20 past 6 a.m. I'm going to talk about getting support with your bills after. It's important that people know where to look, where to go if you're struggling financially with your bills. A13, queuing traffic on A13 into town between A1307. Goresbrook interchange at A406 North Circular, Beckton roundabout 10 to 5 a.m. London A205 queuing traffic A205 South Circular westbound between A210 Yorkshire Grey roundabout and A2212. Bearing Road towards Catford 5 past 6 a.m. Near Watford, M25 slowing traffic on M25 anti-clockwise between Junction 21 M1 and Junction 19 A41 Watford. Reported at 5:31 a.m. Essex News. Bear with me, ladies and gents. Horrific news here. Absolutely criminology. Woman's terrifying train ordeal as boys surround her and threaten to stab her. Cowards carry weapons. The amount of time I've been campaigning on my social media about cowards carry weapons. The amount of times I've been trying to campaign about stop selling sharp knives on shop floors. Well, can we make that change? Can we campaign on that together? Can I make you sign a petition? I can't make it. Will you sign it? No, because it's so easy to press a button. Deactivate people carrying weapons. The only way you can stop people carrying weapons is stop selling them on shop floors. You know, made a prerogative to make your safety paramount, but you're not interested. That's not my problem. That's yours. Um, Danielle said other passengers and members of staff didn't help as the youths surrounded her. My condolences go out to situations like this because by and idle people like yourselves don't want to support it. That's not, I'm doing all I can to try and get these sort of people support and myself and my children and my niece and nephew. But no one else is interested in touching the button. A woman said a group of boys tormented her and threatened her with violence as she travelled alone on a train. Daniel Clark said four boys harassed her by blowing on her face, touching her face and her ear. While a member of the staff and other passengers did nothing. The 26-year-old from Bristol said she was told she would be stabbed and one of them spat at her as she travelled on a train from Frome in Somerset to Bristol Temple Meads on Sunday. April 3rd at around 5 p.m. she told Bristol Live that four boys were aged between 12 and 14 and continued to torment her after shouting at them to go away. She had been sitting at a table on her own on a Great Western Railway service when the boys surrounded her and began intimidating her. She said, I just felt hopeless. I know no one was going to help me. It's one of those things. I kept thinking I should have done something a bit different, but I defended myself. She shouted at the boys to go away, but they repeatedly harassed her. They said, give us your Instagram and we'll go away. They kept on blowing on my face, touching my ear. She said, Danielle says that one of the boys threatened to stab her. When a member of the train staff walked past, she asked him for help, but she says he just asked for a ticket repeatedly. She says the member of staff then asked the boys to leave the train at the next stop before walking away. You know what? Attendant didn't help her because that attendant probably thought that young girl brought that on her own. She probably thought she invited the boys on the trip because they're all around the same age. So he would have just been just doing his job and just totally ignored it rather than trying to intervene and intercept what was going on, the activity. It's horrific, isn't it? Danielle said it makes sense how things like this happen every day because no one does anything about it. There's always women's rights movements, but what's the point when things like this happen every day and no one intervenes? The GWR spokesperson apologised and said our staff received training to manage incidents for safety of all on board. However, ultimately, only the police are able to investigate an allegation of a crime. Danielle says that while she was being harassed, no one else on the train tried to help her except for one other woman who the boys shouted at. I mean, that guy could have took her into the driver's pit and kept her safe until she got to her destination. That's horrific, absolutely horrific. The group of boys left the train at the next station, but she said one of them spat at her as they left. Danielle stayed on a train until she reached Temple Meads. She said that what the boys did to her was horrific, but she's also criticised as a passengers and a staff member who failed to help her. When Danielle came off the train, she was in tears, and a member of staff saw her and escorted her to the station police office, where she filed a report. She says that she didn't sleep much that night, and the day after the incident, she was unable to go to work. And even though she is a confident person, the incident has shaken her. I mean, if I was her parents, I'd be absolutely livid that train staff did not take action for her safety, which is paramount. I'm going to make a big note on that on my social media after and hoping people will come to some sort of conclusion to protect these innocent children on a train. They could have put her into, like I said, the driver's cockpit till she reached safety of her destination. What are your thoughts if that is your niece or your cousin? It's disgusting, isn't it? Absolutely disgusting. They should be fined. GWR train should be fined. Staff members should be. The actual company should be fined to have staff like that, too blind idle to just think about their own safety and their own job. Because if that elderly intercepted that situation, the chance of them boys misbehaving after that would have been very, very slim. They probably thought, oh, and now it's told us now, we've got to behave, or we're going to be in prison, told off by the police. These youngsters are so fickle. They're not going to cause trouble with adults. Need some more people with acting. Maybe they should get a bravery award for intercepting, perhaps. But you know, they need to step in and make the protocol of making young, especially young female, get attacked by men. They could have raped the poor girl.
Yeah. These salaries don't seem so bad, but what we cannot tolerate is people being rewarded for failure and for not delivering on those services, and that is exactly what Town Hall Registers tries to do, is bring some accountability and transparency to local authorities.
To put a counter-argument, one to which I don't subscribe, and notwithstanding the fact that in Croydon is now an economic basket case, but it would argue, if you're running an area the size of Croydon, it is akin to, if not bigger than a chief executive's role, therefore she should be earning that kind of salary. And actually, £614,000 in terms of a chief exec salary is pretty low, very low.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's the old argument, if you pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys. I don't think we're suggesting here that they should all be on, minimum wage or something like that. Exactly. But, there is the issue about are you getting value for money? But what some councils do, and I think this is a really good idea, is they're actually sharing chief executives and other executive positions between councils. Because there's an awful lot of crossover in things like the paperwork and stuff like that. I was recently talking to the leader of the council in Harlow about this. They're actually a council that managed to give its residents an effective cut in council tax this year. And this is exactly one of the things they're looking at as well. And I think, to be fair, we are seeing more and more councils doing this because, it'd be far better to pay one chief executive across two councils, say £200,000, rather than paying two £130,000 each, for example.
Well, they're doing it with schools, aren't they? You have a superhead. She takes on a number of schools. So I don't see why it couldn't work there as well, Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. And exactly. And I say we're seeing more and more councils doing this, and it makes an awful lot of sense. And of course, it's not just in the chief executives and the bosses and things like that. It's also in the services. We've seen councils. I think it's in Norfolk collaborating together on their bin services.
Anything that does that will get my vote. Harry Phone, thank you. Grassroots campaign manager of the Taxpayers Alliance. They put these figures out. Extensive coverage in today's Daily Express, which also lists where the cash goes. Here come the authorities with the highest number of employees in receipt of their pay over £100,000 for the year ending 2021. Westminster has 44, Essex 37, Hackney 36, Haringey 36, Greenwich 32, Newham 32, Waltham Forest 31, and also in the 30s, just Southwark, 30. Well, Peter John is Labour councillor for Champion Hill ward in Southwark Borough and was leader of the council as recently as 2020 and chaired London councils and all these different towns. Joins me now. Do you think that the good folk of Champion Hill and indeed the whole borough of Southwark get value for money with these high salaries? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I think they do. Our approach to chief officer pay in Southwark was always to try and stay in the middle of the pack. So kind of what's the London average, the London median, and that was the approach we took. It was also based on what our officers were doing. My chief executive, during the pandemic, she was working from home, but she was working up to 18-hour days, Nick, solving some of the problems.
She was working an 18 hours. She was getting up at 6 in the morning and working solidly till midnight.
Yeah.
Councillor.
Yeah.
Well, I have to take your word for it. I find that extraordinary.
No. I mean, it was just, this.
Well, who was she talking to at 11 o'clock at night? Who's still up? You're telling me the entire local authority. 5 p.m. didn't exist for the London Borough of Southwark. We are just, this isn't the World War II, kids. We are just working our way through.
If you want, I told you what the reality was, what my chief executive was doing during the early days of the pandemic and throughout the pandemic, because she had London-wide responsibilities. And so she was talking to two colleagues right into the middle of the night. Yes, because issues needed to be resolved. So people were working incredibly hard. And, one of the problems we've got, it's great that the Taxpayers Alliance does this, and it's good to shine a light on this, but there is a massive shortage, too, of qualified people to become chief executives. In London, we're looking for about 10 or 12 chief executives at the moment to take on these roles, because people are reluctant to take them on, A, because they're in the spotlight, B, because they have the kind of massive responsibilities that they do these days with an ever-dwindling budget and ever-dwindling staff.
Ever-dwindling budget?
We should actually celebrate some of the work some of these people do.
Councillor, have you cut then the council tax in Southwark?
No.
So how have you got a dwindling budget? Where's the money going? Late night phone.
Our budget has been cut by government consistently.
No. But I don't live in Southwark. I live in a neighbouring borough. But I know that I'm.
Your budget will also be cut by approximately a quarter to 1/3 in 27.
But mine not been cut. My take from the council is higher, more nationally than ever before. And I would warrant it's the same. I would warrant it's the same in Southwark.
Yeah, in council tax.
So how are the good folk of Southwark getting bang for the buck, councillor?
How are they? Because we've got officers working very hard to, provide services right across the borough. They've provided right throughout the past 2 years to a very high standard. The streets are still clean, bins are being collected, services are being taken on. Food parcels are being delivered to people who are shielding by councils. When things kept going wrong in terms of the government's response to the pandemic, who was picking up the pieces? Local government was. And that's the reality. It's the most reliable part of our governmental system. And if only all governments, parts of government work as well as local government, then perhaps we wouldn't be facing some of the mess that we are at the moment in the country.
Peter John is Labour councillor for Champion Hill Ward in the borough of Southwark, served for a decade as leader of Southwark Council, also chaired the London Council 2020. Thank you for your time, councillor. 9:17, not 7:17. Let's do it all again. 9:17 LBC News headlines. Simon Conway.
The Health Secretary Sajid Javid has defended today's national insurance rise, saying the only alternative would be to increase borrowing. A new wave of sanctions is expected to be imposed on Russia in response to mounting evidence of war crimes in Ukraine. Married couples in England and Wales can now start divorce proceedings without apportioning blame. LBC weather, a mix of sunny spells and some blustery showers, a high of 13 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb on the motorways. The M25 slow for about half an hour from junction 28 to the A12 to 26 at Walford Abbey, and that's because a lorry's broken down. The M3 is very busy northbound to junction 3 at Lightwater, and that's all down to an accident. One lane's closed and there are queues of about 3 miles on the approach. The Rotherhithe tunnels had to be closed in both directions. The car has broken down, so that's very busy both ways. In New Cross, there are delays on the A2, that's the New Cross Road westbound to Florence Road. It's all down to an accident where only one lane is open just before the one-way system. On the underground, there are now severe delays on the Metropolitan line between Moore Park and Amersham, and also Central Line trains can't stop at Chancery Lane Station.
This is LBC.
I race for life for my mum, who was diagnosed with bowel cancer.
I race for life for my best friend, who we lost too soon.
I race for life for my dad, who's living with prostate cancer.
I race for life for everyone with facial cancer.
Who will you race for life for? Sign up to your local event at raceforlife.org by Easter Monday to get 30% off entry. And together, we will beat cancer. In partnership with Tesco.
Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
Today, Lily didn't know where to start with a mortgage, but knew she wanted a place of her own. No more Casa del Parentos. So today she had a chat with Jen from NatWest to understand more about mortgages and how much she could borrow. So tomorrow she could be one step closer to Casa del Lily. We're here to video chat about mortgages 24/7, day and night. Search NatWest Video Banking. NatWest. Tomorrow begins today. Video banking calls may be recorded and compatible device required. Subject to availability. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep your payments on your mortgage. Sometimes it's the little gestures that make the biggest difference to someone's day. Noticing when a friend needs a hug, remembering their special occasions, and just reminding them, I'm here for you. At Sing Flowers, our bouquets, plants and gifts are specially selected to put a smile on the face of all of your loved ones. A little gesture that makes a big difference. Singflowers.com. Amazing every time.
Healing dental bridges, gum problems and periodontal disease, broken or missing teeth. Don't feel like your life is on hold. There are solutions. Here's Andrew Garwood from the Garwood and Tanner Dental Practice.
Our team provide bespoke solutions for patients with urgent and routine dental needs. We're so happy to see our patients returning to us over the years with their problems resolved and still smiling.
Meet the team at garwoodandtanner.co.uk.
A hotel is never easy. Like getting the best price, will you look at the pictures? Well, when you're in, you don't have to worry about any of that.
Because with us, you know exactly what you're getting. A great night's view, over 800 easy-to-find locations, a choice of great value, flexible rates, and as much breaking as you can handle. So enjoy a weekend break without breaking the bank. Premier Inn. Rest easy. Only available to book at premierinn.com.
A successful business comes with many different challenges, but right now the need for good business advice is more important than ever. At Barnes Roof Accountants, we are helping our clients adapt their business strategies by looking at the best ways to cope with both the immediate and long-term impact of COVID-19. To arrange a free consultation with one of our partners to find out how we can support you and your business, please visit barnesroof.com. Barnes Roof, accountants for business.
Well, we can only take on what he says, but how extraordinary as a leader. So, of course, those are elected, and then you have the chief executive of the council. 18-hour days through the first few weeks of the pandemic. How they kept it going is extraordinary. Right, value for money, how are you getting on? If you live in Croydon, your now departed chief executive was earning £614,000 per annum and effectively has left the borough bankrupt. If you're listening in Glasgow, your executive director is on £613,000. If you're listening in chief executive, it's £448,000. These are extraordinary sums of money. Good morning, you're on the radio.
Yeah, hello, Nick.
Hello, sir.
I got my council tax bill recently, like everyone else.
Yes.
So I was looking down at the percentages of where my money's going.
Yeah.
And the highest percentage, 3.7%, is going to the Police and Crime Commissioner for Gloucestershire.
Oh.
So I thought, well, I'll look this up. So what we seem to have is one Police and Crime Commissioner,
right,
one deputy for him to manage the staff, one chief financial officer, four admin staff to back him up, 17 members in the team altogether. Then we have a chief constable, Rod Hanson, deputy chief constable, two of those, two assistant chief constables, and selected officers. I mean, what do they all do?
Well, if you're in Gloucestershire, they ignore the calls from a man who's about to murder his next door neighbour. I'm going to murder him tomorrow. That is Gloucestershire. That is your police. That is your chief constable. That's your DAC, your AC. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Well,
Did you get a total figure on that, Richard? What was the
unfortunately, I tried to look up. I don't know what the total wage bill for all this is. But I was just staggered to think we've got all this duplication. I don't know what they all do, Nick. I really.
Well, neither do they. That's the frightening thing. If you actually remember, Ripper was aggressively buying companies and television companies all around the world. His favourite trips, missions, he asked them to sit down. Here's the story. What do you do all day? Here's the what do you do all day? I don't actually do it. And then I have to move this piece of paper from the wire tray over there, and I read it, and I put it in the wire tray. And we pay you for that, do we? Well, actually, you do currently, Mr. Weatherby. And he famously, thank you for your call, Richard, he famously bought a TV station. I won't name the guy, but he bought a TV station in Australia, and all the executives are paraded in. Can I give you his first name? And I walked in, and Rupert looks over and says, Jesus Christ, Gordon, I've sacked you twice already. Yeah, I know, boss, give me another go. And he did. I worked with the bloke in Sky, good value. All right, more about council. Oh, yes, in a moment, but let's come to this in the first half. From the solicitor side of things, which has changed now. That's it. No fault divorce coming into force. No fault divorce coming into force. Some people are concerned legal separations can be filed by just one partner. Difficult to oppose. Someone who had the unenviable task of having often to rule on this. I refer to Stephen Gold, who served as the Civil and Family Court judge. He's a solicitor. He's also written The Return of Breaking Law, a judge's guide to your legal rights and winning in court or losing well. And he joins me now. Thank you for coming on the line. Mr. Gold, can you remember some of the more bizarre cases that presented themselves between warring couples in the family court? Good morning.
Good morning to you. Well, I can't possibly
disclose that sort of information, but what I can say, Nick, is it's quite a day today because it's the end of adultery. I don't want to disappoint your listeners.
The fun's going out of life, isn't it?
Look, I don't want to disappoint your listeners, so don't take me too literally. I fancy adultery will continue in some shape or form, but I'm afraid it's the end of adultery as a ground for divorce or separation. But it's out of the window along with those other grounds, my unreasonable behaviour, that my husband used to pick his nose out for breakfast and watch porn, or 2 years desertion, and periods of separation, 2 years separation with consent or 5 years separation without consent, but they've all gone because it was thought that these grounds were distasteful to have to rely on, where there was blame alleged. They promoted acrimony, and some parties found themselves locked into a marriage. They were married to a saint, so they didn't have any grounds for divorce on the basis of conduct. The other party wouldn't agree to a divorce after 2 years, so they had to wait for 5 years. So we've got this legislation.
Is divorce suddenly become more friendly?
Well, we'll see about that, won't we?
You're an expert in the field. What do you think, Stephen?
Well, I think these changes are bonkers. I think we needed a new system, but it's far too easy.
So, sorry about that, just moving on. I had to make an argument for child safety and for the fact her family had their daughter on a train and they didn't look after the passenger safety on the journey from Somerset back to Meads in Bristol. Imagine if that was your daughter, your niece, your little cousin, even your mum, attacked by 4 men, grown men perhaps, or your nan, attacked by 4 men. The woman's got fear for rape and had a knife, and they threatened to a knife attack as well. Fear for life, and the ticket man just carried on as his day asking for a ticket. Absolutely shocking, abysmal behaviour by GWR train service. I mean, especially young teenagers, the age of 14. If that ticket officer intervened and said, "Right, come on, I'm going to put you in the cabin with the cabin crew in the front," that intercepted the situation. The chance of them teenage boys attacking a grown man is very, very slim. He should have stepped in and intervened. What happened to the protection of society? Cost of living, what everyone's been worried about, the national insurance rise starts to hit pay packets. Burden of tax falling on workers and employers has increased as a hotly debated rise in national insurance payments takes effect. Employees, business and the self-employed will pay an extra 1.25 pence in the pound. The extra tax is embarked for government spending on social care. Some MPs opposed the move amid cost of living pressures, but mitigation will instead be introduced in July. Experts are urging people to check their status as a new tax year starts. Earning levels at which people start to pay income tax has been frozen, increasing the chances of employers being dragged into a new brand with a higher rate of tax if they receive a pay rise. How national insurance will change. Employees pay national insurance on their wages. Employers pay extra contributions for staff, and the self-employed pay it on their profits. In September, the government announced the rise of contributions from the 6th of April, in part to help ease the burden of the NHS. It means that instead of paying national insurance contributions of 12% on earnings up to $50,270 and 2% on anything above that, employees will now pay 13.25% and 3.25% respectively. The self-employed will see equivalent rates go up from 9% and 2% to 10 to 25% and 3 to 25%. Those of state pensions age do not pay the tax at present, and nor do those on very low incomes. After the announcement last year, the plans were met with disapproval from the opposition parties and some backbench Conservative MPs who criticised the timing, as many face sharp pay rises in energy bills and prices in general. Chancellor Rishi Sunak responded in the spring statement with plans to allow workers and the self-employed to earn more before they start making national insurance payments. This will take effect in July. I just want to stop before I move on. I'm a bit bit of an obscure decision throughout humanity. Where is justice throughout humanitarian in this world? You got NHS staff, you got professional boxers, you got singer artists, you got just professional athletes, and you got NHS staff. Why ain't NHS staff classed as a high pay bracket, such as singer artist or rap artist, or you can be a DJ, world class DJ. You can be, any of them A class celebrities you see on TV. Why aren't these NHS staff paid the same sort of bracket? They're saving your family's life. They're saving your life. Even, MPs are on a substantial amount of money. A lot of people criticise them for getting £80,000 a year, but let's look. Before you start criticising, look at your home football club that you're sitting there chanting in your front room. Look at the athletes. Some of these well-paid athletes, they've got sponsorship deals worth absolute millions. Where's these NHS staff? Where's their pay bracket worth millions? Where's their sponsorship worth millions? Just done a heart transplant on my dad, saved his life, perhaps, or your father, or hip transplant on your mother to make her walk, or even your son or daughter that's disabled, got cleft hip, cleft lip. They're doing all these magical transformations to someone's life, and they're on not 30 grand a year pay bracket. They're getting taxed. National insurance is going up. They've got energy bills to pay. They're working round the clock to save people's lives. It's amazing what they do, and it's amazing what they do for so little. They love their job, absolutely love their job. They start showing how appreciative we are of them. That's what we need to do. As a politician, that's what I'd be screaming towards. I know, people criticise politicians what they earn. They deserve what they earn, because they just. I don't know who it is to make these right decisions. We can all sit here and criticise what they do and what they don't do, but what they do and what they're allowed to do is a different story. I'm pretty sure they've all sat here and thought the same thing, but what they can actually justify and it be listened to and make change is a different story. We don't know what the protocol is, what they have to go through. We know things when they do want to change, it can take up to 6 months for judiciary in the House of Lords, in the House of Commons. Take up to 6 months to make change. But who is it down to change this pay bracket? It's the people that pay the expenses. You're paying expenses to watch your favourite football team. That's where the money comes in. Bums on seats. The venue. It's all about the venue. It's all about the income and expenditure. That's where the money comes in. But why don't these professional athletes turn around and say, actually, I'll give this X amount towards this staff to save my family's life? Taken together, the measures mean that over the next 12 months, anyone earning less than about $30,000 a year will pay less in national insurance than they did the previous year, while those earning more will see their payments rise. Had the Chancellor stuck with this original plan, then all but the very lowest income workers would have paid more than national insurance. Many employers will pay more, and business groups have warned that this may be passed on higher prices. They also said it would add to the pressures already faced by firms following the withdrawal of COVID support measures. Among those concerned about the bill is Hannah Gentry, an assistant general manager at George's Bistro in Cleckheaton. Sorry about my throat. I'm trying to speak as clear as possible. My throat is really sore. Personally, for me, if I look at my wage, I think it's not too much. But as a business, when you have to pay that's on everybody's wages, it adds up really, really quickly, she said. We're going to try and bring in more custom. That's the only way we can do it in terms of events, new menus, to try and draw customers in. Meanwhile, James Hipkins, Managing Director of Emery's Timber and Builders Merchants in Stoke and Telford, told the BBC Today's programme, the rise was another little extra bit to add to the rising cost of materials, fuel and energy. My greater concern is it is at the beginning of a perfect storm. By that, I just mean all the little snips going up. It is going to start to stifle industry. However, Mr. Hipkins said society had a more obligation and responsibility to this to fund social care services, which, he added, have been overlooked for too long. We all know it needs sorting, we all know it needs to be paid for, but none of us are particularly keen on paying for it. All this stage, it seems, a bit wishy-washy and woolly as it's coming in. I would feel a lot more confident and a lot more happy when I see it's an actual separate levy and it can be identified for where it's supposed to be going. The government said it had raised employment allowance from 4,000 to 5,000 so smaller firms could claim up to 5,000 of their national insurance bills. The minister said it meant 670,000 firms will not pay the tax at all. Overall, the increase in national insurance for employers and higher income workers will raise an extra 10.9 billion a year for the government, according to the Institute of Fiscal Studies. Prime Minister Boris Johnson described it as necessary, fair and responsible, adding that it would provide the health and care system with the long-term funding it needs as we recover from the pandemic. Next year, the extra tax will be rebranded as Health and Social Care Levy. Other tax changes. Increase in tax dividends is also coming into effect to add to the funds channeled by the government into NHS and social care. It has gone up to 1.25p in pound. Many private investors hold shares in individual savings account (ISA), which protects them from tax. However, some businesses owners pay themselves in dividends and will face a tax rise. Early last year, Mr. Sunak and said the threshold at which tax is paid will be frozen in April 2021. Levels for 5 years, although Scotland has different levels. That means pay rises will push more people into higher tax bands. If a tax pay rise takes somebody below 12,570 a year to above, then they will start paying income tax at 20% on the amount above 12,570. A shift in salary from below 50,270 to above means paying a higher rate, that's 40%, on the amount above 50,270. The next threshold is at 150,000, when the additional tax rate of 45,000 kicks in. Adrian Lowry, personal finance spokesperson and investing platform, the Best Invest, urged people to check their tax code, which is issued by the HM Revenue and Customs, can be found on the page. A tax code of 1,257 litres is currently used for most people who have one job or pension. If yours is different, make sure you understand why, so you're not paying too much tax, he said. At last month's spring statement, Mr. Sunak pledged to reduce the basic rate of income tax by 1p in a pound before the end of the Parliament 2024. For the tax year, the personal allowance of capital gains tax has been frozen for 12,300. So much profit can be released from assets in the year above the tax is paid. The threshold for inheritance tax, a levy of estates when somebody dies, has been frozen again from 325,000 as it has since from 2009. Farming labour shortage could mean pay rises, MPs warn. Chronic labour shortages in the food farming sector could lead to prices rising, becoming more dependent on food imports, MPs warn. The report for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee said COVID and Brexit had a huge impact on the sector. MPs want ministers to ease English language rules for skilled workers and expand the seasonal workers in the visa scheme. The Department for the Environment and Food and Rural Affairs, the DEFRA, said it was continuing to work with the sector. 500,000 vacancies last year. The sudden decline in overseas labour led to more than 500,000 job vacancies in the food and farming sector, out of a workforce of 4 million. Almost a quarter of the UK daffodil crop was left unpicked. Fruit suppliers was forced to leave produce rotting in the fields. A lack of skilled butchers and abattoir workers meant some 35,000 pigs destined to be made into sausages, bacon and chops was increased or rendered, reduced to lard. When the supply of Christmas turkeys was threatened by a shortage of workers and HGV drivers, government stepped in and set up a temporary visa scheme. However, the committee heard that the industry members have been warning the government since 2021 and that this is a little bit too late. It led to a serious impact on animal welfare, food security, and mental health of workers. 2 seconds, Jim, sip of a drink, it's all right. Thank you for listening to Proclamation News and Gavin today. It means a lot, and I put a lot of effort and time into it, so thank you for tuning in. Price rises. Our report welcomes some of its government's work. It warned that without fundamental change the UK was facing, the chain reaction of wage rises leads to price increases and food production being exported abroad. Neil Parish, chairman of the EFRA committee, said the government's attitude to the plight of food and farming workers was particularly disappointing. MPs said they were struck by the government's failure to grasp the labour issues, and there have been welcome on tendency to blame the sector for not doing more to tackle problems or fully utilising the immigration system on the basis of incorrect information on its own immigration system. Nick Allen, Chief Executive of British Meat Processors Association, said the impact of the new post-Brexit immigration regime and COVID has been crippling. As a result of the conflict in Ukraine, we find ourselves faced with a severe test of the UK's food security. It's clear that this approach has allowed structural weakness to develop, which have compromised Britain's food resilience. FDF's Director of Policy and Cooperation Affairs, Jane Almond, said, compounding the inflationary pressure of the UK food and drink manufacturers, many businesses continue to struggle with systematic labour shortages. The new report calls for radical rethink labour strategy, including a review of the skilled worker visa scheme and for the seasonal workers pilot scheme to be made permanent. It also said there should be tailoring of the English language requirement to the needs of industry. This could mean less stringent testing for some workers. Longer term, homegrown talent should be nurtured, said MPs, alongside development of new technology. In a statement, the DEFRA said it is looking for how technology could be used in the sector. It added, we fully acknowledge the food and farm industry is facing labour challenges and could continue to work with the sector to mitigate them. We have given the industry greater certainty by enabling a seasonal workers scheme until the end of 2024, allowing overseas workers to come to the UK for up to 6 months in the horticulture sector. Our new points-based immigration system also expanded the little worker route to many more occupations, including butchers, who can now be recruited from anywhere in the world. Good look at some more immigration now. Criminology. Ilford woman dies after taking cannabis sweet as Met Police shares urgent warnings. Ever so sorry. I held my chesty cough out for nearly a whole hour. I always say drugs are for mugs. Here we have it today. Class B drugs. A young woman has tragically died after taking cannabis sweet with a friend. The Met Police said the woman took the sweet, also known as gummy, after purchasing it on a messaging app. 23-year-old, whose identity has not been revealed, purchased what she thought as a cannabis sweet or gummy. Messaging app before it was delivered to her home address. The woman and her 21-year-old then each ate one sweet before immediately feeling unwell. Met police officers and ambulance crews were called at an address in South Park Drive, Ilford, at around 11:30 on 29th of March. Both women are taken to East London Hospital. Sadly, a 23-year-old woman died at hospital on Saturday, April the 2nd. Special post-mortem examination will be arranged in due course. Officers are awaiting the results of the NHS post-mortem and of tests of a number of sweets which have been recovered by police. The second woman has been discharged from hospital following treatment. A spokesperson from Met Police said urgent inquiries underway to establish the full circumstances and identify any other cases where people have become seriously unwell for eating cannabis sweets, gummies and similar products. Officers are aware of one potentially linked case in which a woman was taken unwell earlier in March after eating a cannabis sweet in Tower Hamlets. She was taken to hospital and later discharged. Inquiries are ongoing to establish whether this sweet was part of the batch of sweets associated with Ilford death. A man was arrested by police on Friday. He was found in possession of a large quantity of cash and was what were believed to be edible cannabis products. The man was charged following day with possession of intended to supply Class B synthetic cannabinoid, being concerned in supply of synthetic cannabinoid and possession of intent to supply of a psychoactive substance. Chief Superintendent Super Bell of Met's East Anglia BCU said, "I must warn the public against taking any illegal substances, including those packaging in form of cannabis sweets. Please don't consume these products. They are legal and, because of child-friendly packaging, they can pose a risk of accidental consumption." The two batches of sweets were contained in packaging featuring Trilly Peachios branding. It has been confirmed at this stage where the sweets were manufactured. Drug dealers harm communities and the risk of safety of individuals will take positive action to target those engaged in the activity as well as those found in possession of the substance. Anyone with information please about people selling illegal products such as these is asked to speak to our local officers. Call police 101 or to remain anonymous. Contact Crime Stoppers. The Proclamation News and Gatherings, make sure you share the news. I don't want anyone to take these substances. Anything illegal, don't take it. You're taking risks to your own life. Anyway, Proclamation News and Gatherings. Take care. One love. Speak soon.